Hello and welcome to the episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. Today is Friday, October 20th. Hope everybody has a good day so far and a good rest of their day yesterday. Hope everybody had a good week. It is a Football Friday podcast as we get ready for another exciting weekend of college football along with the NFL as well on Sunday. We got a lot of big games this weekend. It is fully into NFL and college football season. We're already week 8 of the college football season, and we're already in week 7 of the 2023 NFL season. So the season is flying by. Another big weekend with a lot of exciting matchups coming up here in both college and the NFL. We'll break it all down today on the podcast. We'll also get set up for a little bit of MLB postseason. We'll also get you ready for the hockey as well going on. A tough loss last night for the New York Rangers as they lose to the Nashville Predators at home. They will now hit the road for an extended road trip starting tomorrow night in Seattle, and then they will head up to Canada to face a couple teams up there before coming back home later on in the month. So we got a lot to get into today on the podcast as we're going to break down the NFL. It is a Football Friday podcast. I'll get you my NFL game picks. We'll also get you set for everything else going on this weekend. The New York Jets have a bye week, so we'll just get ready. We'll just get you ready for the New York Giants and the Washington Commanders at MetLife Stadium on Sunday. Jets will be back in action next week, and that'll be the battle between the Jets and the Giants, a battle for New York, two crosstown rivals. So a lot to look forward to as we get set here for another exciting weekend here in October, the best month, I believe, in all of sports, and another good weekend coming up. So we'll start here with the NFL and my game pick. So last night I did predict the Jaguars over the Saints. Jaguars got the job done 31-24. Early on it was an ugly, boring game, but it actually got more entertaining, and late in the game, obviously New Orleans could not capitalize late in that game. Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence, even with a banged up knee, they come away with the victory. They now get to 5-2 on the year. And for the Saints, they're left searching for answers yet again as they now fall to 3-4 on the season. And their offense, even though it started to find a little bit of a rhythm, it seemed, still late in the game, couldn't execute, couldn't capitalize. And for the most part of that game, that Saints offense, they went into halftime down 17-6. It took a 15-point fourth quarter to come back into the game, and even that wasn't enough. So a rough outing overall for New Orleans yet again as they're left searching for answers offensively. So I enter this week, including last night's win, including last night's correct pick, with my record at 65-29. And we now get you ready for all the games going on Sunday. So we'll start with the Colts-Browns. Colts 3-3, Browns 3-2. The Browns fresh off of a big win over the Niners last week with P.J. Walker, and the Colts coming off of a loss in their first game without Anthony Richardson against the Jaguars, 37-20, 1 Eastern. Browns 3.5-point road favorites. I'll be honest here. It's an interesting game. Again, uncertainty around Deshaun Watson, and his injury. You'll get Gardner Minshew out there. There's potential. We see a little Gardner Minshew and somebody non-Deshaun Watson out there on Sunday. It's an interesting matchup. Colts at home. Browns coming off of that big win where they were shorthanded. Found a way to come up against a Niners team that went into that game undefeated. And even though they went into that game undefeated, they were banged up. McCaffrey had to leave the game. Debo, all those guys got hurt. They were banged up. Brock Purdy didn't have his best game, so they found a way to pull away with a late victory on a Jake Moody missed field goal. I'm going to take the Colts in this game, though. I am. I think the Colts are going to come away with a victory. I think the Browns are going to be riding a little bit too much on that high from last week. I'm going to take Indy, Gardner Minshew at home. I almost took them last week over Jacksonville. I'm going to take the Colts this week. I think we're going to get a little bit of a Minshew mania action in Indy this week at Lucas Oil Stadium. Give me the Colts at home, low scoring, 20-17 victory. Colts plus 3.5. They get the victory against the Browns on Sunday. I'll take Indy. Second game here, Bills-Patriots. Bills 4-2, fresh off of a low-scoring, ugly W over the Giants. But again, a W is a W. They took care of business. And if you're a Bills fan, you look at 4-2, completely different than what 3-3 would have been. If the Bills came into this game 3-3, They would be third in the division behind the Jets and the Dolphins. You look at this game so much differently for the Bills from a perspective of, man, they just lost 2 straight games. They just lost to the 1-4 Giants at the time. Now they're obviously 1-5. It's getting ugly, but that win, they're 4-2. They're going up against New England, who's 1-5. Bills are 8-point favorites. I'll be honest, even though this is an in-division matchup and Patriots are a pretty good defense, to have a solid defense, this spread should at least be 10, 11 points. The Bills are going to dominate. I have them easily covering this 8-point spread. If it was 14, 15 points, you could potentially make the case that the Patriots would cover, take the Patriots plus 15, but Bills are winning this game. The Patriots are atrocious. There's so many issues from coaching down to quarterback, down to actual talent on that roster. They're one of the worst teams in the NFL. I'm going to take the Bills on the road, covering the 8 points and getting the job done. Bills 28, Patriots 13, Bills by 15. I'll take Buffalo on the road in Foxborough. Next game, Lions and the Ravens. Lions 5-1, Ravens 4-2. Baltimore 3-point favorites, fresh off of their victory last week in London over the Tennessee Titans. They took care of business there by 8. Lions are taking the league by storm right now. They're 5-1. They've won 4 straight games. Their only loss coming to the Atlanta Falcons at home in week 2. They've had a lot of big wins both on the road and at home. This is a big road test for them against Lamar Jackson and this Ravens team, who is coming off of a nice victory. I'm going to take the Lions, Jared Goff, on the road. This Lions team, led by Dan Campbell, is so good. They're believing in their coach. They're one of the better teams in football. They are as good as advertised. We went into this year with the Lions saying, they could be one of those under-the-radar teams that are sneaky good. They're not even underrated anymore. They're one of the best teams in football. They're 5-1. They're right up there in the top of the NFC conversation, especially with Dallas recently struggling a little bit, Niners losing last week. That NFC all of a sudden, what looked like it was, and the Eagles as well, both teams losing last week, now completely opens up the door for that NFC. Lions right in that conversation. I'm going to take Detroit on the road. Tough environment over a 4-2 Ravens team. Is one of the best games of the weekend. I'm going to take Detroit over Baltimore on the road. Lions get the job done. Close. 27-24 Lions over the Ravens. Lions +3. I'll take Detroit on the road. This might be one of the worst games of the weekend. Bears 1-5, hosting the Raiders, who are 3-3. Vegas is a small 2.5-point road favorite. No Justin Fields in this game. No Jimmy G. You're going to get Brian Hoyer for the Raiders, who took over last week. Do we even see Davante Adams get targeted this week? Who even knows? And you're going to get Tyson Bagent, or Bagent, I think his name is, or however you pronounce his last name, for the Bears. You're getting 2 bad football teams to begin with, and you're getting 2 bad football teams without their starting quarterback. Now, Jimmy G has been all right. He's been Fields has been one of the worst quarterbacks in football. I don't think Jimmy G's been one of the worst quarterbacks in football. He's been He's probably been definitely below average. I say he's probably been competent, but that's not what you want from a starter. Justin Fields has been pretty bad. And I know even though he was playing a little bit better there, but overall in the year, it hasn't been good enough. They're 1-5. They're a disaster. If the Raiders lose this game, serious problems could occur, especially if Davante Adams isn't getting the football a lot. I'm going to take the Raiders. I think it's going to be a low-scoring, ugly game. 2 bad football teams, 2 bad coach teams. This is just a brutal game. This is one of these games where if you do bet the games, I would not even do that. It's just one of these games where it's going to be so weird. It's going to be some dumb score, 2 just bad football teams. I'll take Vegas. Vegas 17, Chicago 13. I'll take the Raiders covering the 2.5. Brian Hoyer gets it done. But, man, this is going to be ugly. If you don't have to, do not watch this game Sunday. Now, if you're a fan, I understand. But if you're not a fan of these 2 teams, get this game off your television. It's going to be awful. Next up, we got the Falcons and the Bucks. Falcons 3-3, Bucks 3-2. Falcons coming off a devastating late game loss against Washington, where they had an opportunity to drive down. Desmond Ridder threw a brutal interception late. They're now 500. Buccaneers coming off a blowout loss at the hands of the Detroit Lions. The Bucs, they've been playing well, and then they kind of get set back down to reality. Play well again, back down to reality. Big week for the Buccaneers. They're 3-2. If they want to stay around that contention in the NFC, big division matchup between these two teams. If the Bucs want to stay relevant or stay in front of that NFC South, especially with the Saints losing again last night, they can really make up a little more ground and really put themselves more comfortable into that NFC playoff picture with a win this week, especially how those 2 weeks against Philly and Detroit have gone. I'm going to take the Bucs in this game. Let's be honest here. Desmond Ridder's been terrible. Falcons aren't very good. The Bucs, when they play really good teams, they lose. But when they play teams that are to their level, even if they're a little bit better, they found a way to get the job done. Again, the Bucs' two biggest losses have come to the Eagles and the Lions. Two teams that are 5-1. Other than that, the Bucs have played well this year. They're better than the Falcons, I believe. I'll take Tampa coming off a tough loss. They're going to come out motivated. Todd Bowles, Baker Mayfield get their fourth win of the season. I'll take Tampa at home. Bucs covering the 2.5, 24-20 Bucs over the Falcons. They get the job done at home. All right, now we move on to the 4 o'clock games here. Steelers-Rams. Steelers 3-2. Rams 3-3. Rams a small 3-point home favorite. Pittsburgh coming off that big win against Baltimore. They are now fresh off the bye week. Can they continue that momentum that they gained late in that Baltimore game on the road here against the Rams? For the Steelers, these next couple weeks are big. You've got a Rams team coming up. You got the Jaguars. You got the Titans. You got 3 teams coming up, especially that Titans game is on a short week. They've got 3 games coming up that are definitely going to be they're definitely going to be difficult, and they've gone through the part of their, they haven't really had, they haven't had a gauntlet of a schedule, but the way they've played, these next couple games are going to be interesting. Jacksonville's really good. This is going to be an interesting game. Then you got Tennessee. If they can find a way to continue to kind of hang around that 500 mark, just like Mike Tomlin's been able to do recently with that team, they'll be in the conversation in the AFC. It's a big opportunity for them on the road, right? The whole Matt Canada situation is interesting to see whether or not how much longer he's going to be the offensive coordinator. When they scored that touchdown late in that game against the Ravens, he wasn't celebrating. It's an interesting situation. It's something to monitor. Rams at home, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Matt Stafford. I'm going to take the Rams. I do think the Steelers defensively have what it takes to contain and slow down some of those pieces that I just mentioned on LA. Just don't think they're going to fully have the offensive firepower. I mean, let's be honest here. This is a team, they have not been good offensively. They are 3-2, but offensively, they're not very good. I'm going to take the Rams at home. Rams, they're going to score. I just don't think Pittsburgh's going to be able to keep up with them. That's their biggest flaw, is their offense. Give me the Rams at home over Pittsburgh. Tough environment, tough road game for that team. West Coast trip. It's just a tough spot to be in. Now, they are coming off the bye, but offensively, I'm going to take the Rams here. Rams 27, Steelers 23. Rams cover the 3, win by 4. I'll take LA. Next up, we got the 1-5 Cardinals and the 3-2 Seahawks. Seahawks 8-point favorites. I wouldn't even really give the Cardinals a chance if they were at home. I'd give them a little bit of a better chance just because they've played teams really hard, specifically at home. They took down Dallas. They obviously almost beat the Giants at home. They've been a better home team this year than they have been away. I think that's pretty obvious by a lot of people. Recently, I think their run of competitiveness is kind of out the window. Like, you look at the Cardinals, is their first 3 weeks of the season, you can honestly genuinely sit there and say they could have easily been 3-0. If they don't blow that game against Washington late, if they don't blow the game against the Giants late, and then they beat the Cowboys. They were 1-2, but you looked at it and said, man, they limit the turnovers. They limit the mistakes late in games. They're a 3-0 team. Last 3 weeks, though, it's been the tale of 2 halves so far. Last 3 weeks, they've come back down to earth. They've gotten blown out in their last 3 games. They've lost by multi-score games. This run of competency from the Cardinals, where they were like, this team led by Josh Dobbs, who's played well, is actually pretty good. They're not terrible. That has kind of ran out. They've been playing terrible recently. And they're 1-5. Their record shows it. that run of being really competitive, keeping games close against really good teams is out the window. Cardinals, and even, let's be honest here, I mean, they kept the game close against the Washington and the Giants. Two teams that aren't very good. Took care of business against Dallas. Big win. Dallas always kind of has those one or two big upsets every year. Arizona was that. I'll take the Seahawks. They're at home. Brutal environment to go into for a 1-5 team. Seattle coming off a tough loss last week, or they're on the brink of scoring in the red zone against the Bengals. They're going to come out with energy. It's a really tough spot for Arizona. On the road, team coming off a loss. Seattle all day. I'll take the Cardinals. Or I'll take Seattle 27-17. They win by 10 and cover the 8. Packers, Broncos is another game that's not great. Packers 2-3, Broncos 1-5. Green Bay, a small 1-point road favorite. I'm going to take Green Bay here. The Broncos are a dumpster fire. They're on their way to selling at the deadline, giving away a lot of pieces. We've already seen them do it a lot. We've already seen them make some moves. Green Bay on the road. I know Denver at home. Altitude, all that stuff always comes into factor. It is a tough place to play, too. That place always sells out no matter what the record is. It's always loud. It's always a tough environment to play in. I'm still taking Green Bay. Denver's a train wreck. I'll take the Packers. They have a small hope of still being in contention. Denver's out of it. I mean, it's a team that's in a couple weeks here, they can look completely different, and who knows what they're going to do in the offseason with Russell Wilson and the quarterback, if they're going to hang on to him. I mean, can they really get rid of him with that contract? So many problems internally, externally for that Broncos team. I'll take Green Bay on the road. Low scoring 20-17 rather. Packers over Denver. Packers cover the 1. Chiefs, Chargers, your final 4 o'clock game of the day. Chiefs 5-1, Chargers 2-3. Chargers coming off that brutal loss at home against Dallas where Herbert didn't play well. You still have questions about the coaching. They've now got to turn around and go to Kansas City. Chargers better watch out. Their season is starting to spiral. It really is. You know, you had that loss last week. You do get the Bears next week. So even if you lose this game, you get the Bears next week to bounce back most likely. But this Chargers team has not been playing very good football recently. They just haven't. Defensively, offensively, last week. I mean, this is ultimately they're 2-3. They're on the road in Kansas City. Kansas City's had their number. I mean, you know, Chiefs brought in McCole Harmon. I don't know if we'll see him this week, but they brought him back with a trade with the Jets. Chargers are in a spot where they got to watch out. You know, if they keep losing, their season's going to get out. Season's going to start to spiral. Again, these next couple weeks here, these are big. These next couple weeks are big. You know, these 2-3, 3-2, 2-4 teams, they got to start winning if they want any chance. And for those 4-2 teams, they got to start continuing to prove, hey, we're legit. Even the 3-3 teams, right? The Jets, they got to come out of the bye and start fast, right? They can't just beat the Eagles and act like the season's over at that point. No, they got to come out of the bye week and start fast. This is where contenders and pretenders separate themselves. We'll see what the Chargers are. But I'll take Kansas City at home. Arrowhead. Chargers stand no chance. I look at it. Chiefs 5.5. I'll take Kansas City 27-20. Win by a touchdown and cover the 5.5 Kansas City. Final game of the day. Sunday, 8:20. NBC. Sunday Night Football. Eagles, Dolphins. 2 5-1 teams. Dolphins coming off of the comeback over the Panthers. A beat down after falling down 14-0. And the Eagles are obviously coming off a brutal loss from their standpoint, although a great win from a Jet fan perspective against the Jets last week at MetLife, where turned the ball over way too much, blew the game late, missed opportunities, had some drops. They went on the road and lost to, they went on the road and, in a game where they were expected to win by a lot, they went on the road and lost. And that's always tough. And they did a lot of it was at times them shooting themselves in the foot, like the turnovers and all that stuff. They've got to clean that up this week. They're back at home. A big opportunity here for Philly. Philly's been getting a lot of hate over the last week, rightfully so. They just lost the big game on the road, a game that they were supposed to win. They're now no longer undefeated. A lot of people are starting to say, okay, what's going to happen? How are they going to bounce back? Miami going into a hostile environment. They've had one big opportunity so far this year against the Bills to go into a tough environment and beat a really good team. They didn't do it. Both these teams are going to come into this game. It's going to be an awesome game because both these teams are going to come into this game with a chip on their shoulder. From a Philly perspective, they're coming into this game with a chip on their shoulder because they just lost last week and they no longer undefeated. And from a Miami perspective, all they've heard for the first 6 weeks of the season is not about their 5-1 record, but the fact that they've beaten all these teams that are really bad. They beat the Chargers 2-3. They beat the 1-5 Patriots. They beat the 1-5 Broncos. They beat the 1-5 Giants. They beat the 0-6 Panthers. And the only team they lost to was the 4-2 Bills within the division. And they lost by 28. So all they've been hearing the last couple weeks has been, is this team really that good? They've beaten 5 bad teams, lost to the one good team they've played. Now they get another chance on the road to face a really good football team in Philly. They are still really good even with the loss last week. So this is going to be a fun game. Both teams are going to come out with a lot of energy. I have bounced back and forth about who I think will win this game. I've contemplated Miami. I've thought about Philly. Miami's just so good because they have their speed. Will Philly be able to do enough to contain that? Without Achane, who obviously missed last week, see what Miami can do. Miami can start fast on the road in this game. You like their chances because when they start fast, when they start to score points, it's tough on the defense because their speed just starts to kill you in so many ways. Tyreek Hill across the middle. Can Philly do enough to contain Tyreek Hill? Because at this point, there's no stopping him. It's just about, can we contain him so he doesn't go out there, score 3 touchdowns, and take a securities guy's phone and do a backflip with it? That's the real big question. I've gone back and forth. Philly's at home, which definitely benefits. They're 2.5-point favorites. I'm going to take Philly here over Miami. I am. I just think at home, I think they're going to come out of last week extremely frustrated. I think Jalen Hurts is going to realize that he probably had one of his worst games, really. I don't know if you want to say in his career, but it was one of his worst games we've seen in a very long time out of Jalen Hurts. 3 turnovers, just wasn't seeing the field very well. Made some mistakes, on times where, wasn't able to really get his mobility involved. It seems like, at times when he could have ran, he didn't. Had a couple bad throws. Just was a brutal day for him. And the offense couldn't get going. So for them to turn it around, and that's big, I think they will. I'm going to take Philly at home. 28-27 Philly by 1. They don't cover the 2.5. I'll make it dramatic. Philly over Miami. They get the job done. And, no. I'll take Philly 27. I'll take Philly 28-24. Philly covering the 2.5 at home against Miami. I'll take the Eagles. One more game left, and that's the Giants and the Commanders. This is another rough game. Now, from a Commanders perspective, look, they are still very much in the hunt in the NFC. And, this is a big game for them because they lose this game. They've got Philly next week, who they competed against, but let's say most likely you go 3-5 there. And then you got New England, who should win, but then you got Seattle on the road after that. And then their schedule later on in the season really toughens up. They've got Cowboys, Dolphins, Rams still. They got the Niners. They got the Cowboys 2 more times. They got the Eagles 1 more time. They've got the Dolphins. They got the Niners. They got some good teams. They've also got the Jets on the road mixed in there, which, who knows, at that point might be Aaron Rodgers' first game back. Who knows? We'll see. But their schedule doesn't get any easier. It's games like this for the Commanders against the Giants. It's games like the Patriots. They've got the Giants 2 more times. They got New England, right? Like those 3 games, those should be wins. Get you to that 6-win mark, right? And then you've got, even the games against, the Rams, it's potentially winnable. They haven't looked great, but other than that, look, they've got still, their schedule for the most part the rest of the way is extremely tough. For them to want to play meaningful games in December, these are the games they've got to win. Is against the Giants on Sunday. And for the Giants, there's not much hope left. If you want to give your fan base a little bit of hope, you gotta win this game. If you stay around that 2-5 mark, even if you lose to the Jets next week and you beat the Raiders, you're then 3-6. Maybe you go on some sort of run because then after that you do have Washington, New England, Green Bay, New Orleans, which are all teams that haven't looked good. Look, the Giants are going to make the playoffs. They're 1-5. You got to realize how hard that is to do. And they've still got Dallas. They've still got the Eagles twice. They've still got the Rams. They've still got some teams that are really solid. They've also got a Jet team that's hot right now. So their schedule's not necessarily that easy as well. Now, they do have some easier stretches, but look, they're 1-5. They're one of the worst teams in football. You can look at the Commanders and say the Commanders have been better than the Giants this year. The only team that the Giants probably have left on their schedule that haven't been better than them is the Patriots. I'd say the Patriots are probably the worst team in the NFL. Giants are probably right in front of them. And so are the Bears. Bears are right down there as well. So technically the Giants, when you look at their schedule, everybody remaining other than maybe one team is better than them. So it's an interesting matchup. Look, all I'm saying for the Giants, they got to keep that game competitive because that crowd is going to be ruthless if it is a 13-0 game going into halftime and they're not scoring. Ideally, if you're a Giant fan, you would just like to see a touchdown in this game. 1 Eastern CBS. Washington, they're giving them a 61.4% chance of winning. They're giving the Giants a 38.3% chance of winning. Look, this Giants defense played well last week. They also played well the week before. They had 3 turnovers against the Dolphins. They held the Bills shut out for 45 minutes. The Bills didn't score 14 points until the last quarter, right? And they lost that game because they scored 9 points and they couldn't score in the red zone. And they had a terrible miscue before the first half, not getting points. So a lot of it's been on the offense. The offensive line has been a train wreck. Teams have played that really well against them, and they've blitzed them, and they've gone all sorts of pressure. We'll see who it is if it's Jones or Tyrod out there. We'll see if the Giants run any type of gamesmanship. Their Commanders are 2.5-point favorites in this game. The over-under, I'll be honest, this is a horrible game to pick because 37.5 is the over-under because I could see the Giants winning this game. They're at home. It's one of these games where, you don't really know what the Commanders are either. They beat the Falcons last week on the road in a close win. They competed against the Eagles and sandwiched between those two games. They took the Eagles to overtime and they beat the Atlanta on the road. Anytime you win a road game in the NFL, it's tough. Sandwiched between that was a 20-point loss on Thursday night against the Bears. So you really don't know what to expect from this Commanders team. They've also had games against the Bills where they lost by 34. But then the next week they lost by 3 against Philly. They've been so inconsistent. The Giants, at least they've been consistently bad. I mean, they're 1-5. They're terrible. I mean, they've played, let's be honest here, the Giants have played 2 good quarters of football this year. It was in the second half of week 2. We're sitting here in week 7, and they haven't scored a touchdown since Thursday night against the Niners. It's over a month. With all that being said, I do have a weird feeling the Giants are going to come away with the win here. Now, that's not a knock on the Commanders. It's more of, they're at home. Their defense played well last week. I could see their defense doing enough against Sam Howell. If they can contain Josh Allen for 3 quarters, they should be able to do an okay job against Sam Howell. For me, I'm just worried about Commanders for some reason are just too inconsistent. I could just see this for the Commanders being a game where they look on their schedule and say, we've got a big matchup next week at home against Philly. The last time we played them, it was close. We have a 1-5 game. I could just see this being a trap game for a Commanders team that if they get this win or 4-3 and you go into next week against Eagles, who maybe are losers of 2 straight if they don't win this week, and you start to feel a little bit differently maybe about the outlook of the season, I'm going to say this is a little bit of a trap game, a little bit of a look-ahead game for Washington. I'm going to take the Giants here. Washington inconsistency hurts them. I'm going to take the Giants picking up their 2nd win of the year and their 1st at home. I'll take the Giants at home. Giants, boring, terrible, low-scoring game. Giants 20, Washington 16. Giants by 4. Plus 2.5, Giants get the win. I'm going to take the Giants here at home. I just have a weird feeling they're going to come away with the win. Also, the Giants have done a very good job against the Commanders. Like, if Daniel Jones is out there, he's dominated the Commanders in his career. Last year on Sunday Night Football, Kayvon Thibodeau had a huge game. For some reason, Washington, Ron Rivera, they cannot beat the Giants. Just is what it is. I think that continues on Sunday. So, again, my game picks, I got the Colts winning, Bills winning, Giants winning, Lions winning, Raiders winning, Bucks winning, Rams, Seahawks, Packers, Chiefs, and Eagles. We'll get you ready for Niners-Vikings on Monday. As I mentioned, MLB postseason, Rangers, Astros, 5:07 today, Eastern, Phillies, Diamondbacks, 8:07 Eastern, Phillies look to put the Diamondbacks on the brink of elimination with a 3-1 lead. And as for college football, well, you got one massive, massive game tomorrow. A couple big ones, but one big one in particular, and that's number 7 Penn State going into the shoe to face number 3 Ohio State. 2 6-0 teams, 2 teams in the Big Ten that are looking to get to the Big Ten championship. The 2 best teams you can make an argument in the Big Ten. Big some news recently with Michigan and the allegations against some of their sign stealing and all that stuff. Penn State, 7th-ranked team in the nation, on the road. They win this game, Penn State's college football playoff hopes skyrocket. Winning a game on the road against Ohio State is huge. Penn State, big game for them, big opportunity, because then in a couple weeks they get Michigan at home, which will be big. Penn State on the road, massive. I'm going to take Penn State tomorrow. Ohio State is 5-point favorites. You've also got a big game, Tennessee, Alabama, top 25 matchup, 3:30 Eastern, CBS, Alabama. They're giving them a 9-point favorite. Duke, Florida State. Duke looks to crush Florida State and their hopes right now. Now, if Florida State loses, it doesn't mean their season's over, but with teams like Washington playing well, if Penn State wins this week, it could really... Chaos would strike if Ohio State, Florida State loses, the 3 and 4 seed loses, Washington continues to win, and obviously even if you got... And obviously if, the Penn State goes on the road and wins, things will start to get interesting there in the college football playoff. So, a couple of big games this weekend to look forward to in college football on Saturday. So that'll do it for another episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. We'll obviously be back here on Sunday or Monday talking all things sports, recapping the weekend. And enjoy the weekend. Enjoy all the sports on. We'll see you back here on the flip side on Monday. As always, hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.